Good day for everyone. It's cold here. We get snow. So
Oh, snow.
that's how my day started. Yeah.
That's nice.
You were like,
Crisp.
ooh, snow. Nice. Yeah,
I mean,
Chris.
it's been a while. It's been a while. All right. Peace, mercy, and blessings, everyone. Members of the decentralized movement, welcome to the AfroFinLab. Today, we are discussing why should developers in Africa care about blockchain? What is the importance of this new technology? And how can we really feasibly get this word out to the community? Today we have Maxime Desau and Joshua Akpan as our expert hosts. And our referee this week is Meg Swan, who's an author, teacher, and expert in digital marketing. So, Josh, Max, tell us about POA, or no acronyms, Proof of Africa, right?
Exactly. Yeah, POA is a stake pool which we started, Joshua and I, back in, I guess, July 2019,
Okay.
and it's mostly just an initiative to drive adoption down there in Africa, and the idea is that we were looking for a source of funding, and well, I'm 18, Joshua is what, 21, 23, so raising funds is very difficult at that age, and going to a VC is like, that just doesn't make sense. And so we were looking for a way of funding, and yeah, that seemed like the perfect fit for what we try to do.
So you can think of POA as a stake pool powered adoption driver. At least that's how we pictured it in the beginning. So what that simply means is that in the beginning we couldn't. It wasn't sustainable for us to hold meetups, right? Because I was holding meetups since 2018, and at some point it wasn't sustainable for me to pay from my pocket, hold these meetups. But I really wanted to do it because I was passionate about, teaching people about blockchain technology, especially in my region. So, I and Max started POA, um, and then we came up with the idea of using a stake pool to actually power that movement, or that whole process, because paying from my pocket or Max's pocket, it wasn't really sustainable, and that was like the core idea of why we created POA. It's just to facilitate our educational um, endeavors.
Okay, I do want to jump in for a second then. I think I understand what a stake pool is, but is Proof of Africa the name of your stake pool, or is that a type of some other kind of endeavor?
So Proof of Africa is the name of our stake pool.
And then how, by because I heard you say you couldn't, fundraising is the challenge. You can't just go to the venture capitalist. How do you, once you create the stake pool, how does that become a source of funding?
Well, when you have a stake pool, you validate transactions on the network. Essentially, you are mining the currency itself, and so people are delegating the power of mining of their cryptocurrency to you, and you are essentially the servers, and you are validating these transactions, and for that job you're rewarded. And so it's a very efficient way of raising funds, if I may say it like that, because nearly anyone can do it, and nearly anyone in the world can say, okay, I want to support this, I can delegate to this, and that person will not be losing money, and will even be winning money while supporting that stake pool. So it's a win-win in terms of source of funding.
So it's like a means of investment, and the way, like in terms of the action, like if I wanted to help, I believed in Proof of Africa and I wanted to put my dollars behind that, or my money or energy or time behind that, that would mean staking or delegating funds to the pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Max, can you go into a little bit more about mining?
Yeah. So.
Sorry.
No, I love it. No, that's perfect. I actually helped. I was like, maybe I shouldn't ask it, and then thank you.
Yeah. On Bitcoin, you have proof of work, right? Proof of work is a system where you have a ton of computers. Usually, you have these huge farms with thousands of computers, which can only do that, and so they only validate transactions on network. And the more you have chances of being the quickest and validating a block. So essentially, every block of transactions, a block is a group of transactions essentially, is a competition where miners compete to be the fastest at mining it. And so that's why people group themselves together with mining pools so that they are more efficient because together they are stronger. And so they can validate the transactions much faster or validate the blocks much faster. And Cardano, for example, uses proof of stake. In proof of stake, we say, well, proof of work has an ecological impact, and proof of work isn't that accessible due to the costs of these machines. And so we say, okay, well, if you hold the token, you can delegate it to some people who have these types of machines who will be doing that job for you, essentially. And that's the main difference.
So just to
And-
add
and
into
I'll
that,
jump
we've
in
got a new expert guest joining us, Chidi from ABCD. So we've heard a bit about POA, Proof of Africa. Chidi, could you give us a quick introduction to ABCD and how it works with Proof of Africa?
Okay, I would say the history of ABCD, or what made us come up with the idea of ABCD, is because of it came from actually our experiences down here. You know, back when I and Josh were doing meetups for Cardano, we discovered that we came across a lot of people. We came across entrepreneurs. We also, I'm actually a developer, so I was able to also gather some developer community around, our meetups. So we had this issue of there were entrepreneurs that were ready to pull their businesses on the blockchain, but we didn't have the skills. We're developers quite all right, and we had one or two people who had interacted with the blockchain, but we could not really find sufficient skills, to bring out tangible projects. Then we also had cases where you see entrepreneurs applying to, say, the regular hubs, and they don't really understand the technology. They don't really understand what these entrepreneurs want to achieve. So, we saw that there was a shortage of not only the manpower, but there was a shortage of, the businesses being able to build something. There was shortage of funds. There was shortage of, the knowledge, the technical know-how, and all those. So we decided that the easiest way, to solve these problems would be to bring in a driver, for the blockchain economy, and that's what made us come up with the whole ABCD concept. So and to answer your next question, the relationship between ABCD and POA, just as Josh and Mark stated earlier, these entrepreneurs are still going to need maybe a little bit of funding, maybe a little bit of access to knowledge and all those. So that's where POA comes in, as well as some other partners which we have. That's where they come in, to provide these things for the community members to grow and scale their projects.
So I'm still actually, I feel a little unclear on what ABCD, like what it does. It's that when you've got entrepreneurs who want to be investing in blockchain or leveraging blockchain for some kind of problem solving, then ABCD comes in to help do that.
Okay, ABCD is actually a hub. It's not just, we're not just, say, partners, or we're actually a hub. We intend to create an ecosystem, an entirely new ecosystem around blockchain and blockchain technology. So basically what we are doing with the young generation is we intend to train these youths, as well as not just train them and put them out there. We intend to also be able to help them build on their ideas. So we are creating a new generation of blockchain developers on the Cardano network, as well as incubating existing and new businesses who intend to build and use the blockchain. So we are creating an entirely new ecosystem around Africa.
I'm probably just supposed to ask questions, but that's like so inspiring. That's so cool.
I agree. It's awesome.
That's
It's
really
amazing. I want to circle back around also on the mining, just like so everyone gets a little bit like clearer picture of like mining, like kind of in general. And basically, it's a mechanism for consensus. So it's a mechanism for agreement that something happened. So on the blockchain, you have all of these transactions that are going back and forth for all different types of reasons. And the blockchain in and of itself is a ledger that's keeping track of all of these transactions that are going across the network. So, right now there might be thousands of computers, in the future there will be, tens of thousands or even more computers that are sending these transactions back and forth that are doing all sorts of things, whether it's, payments or, registering, land or, deeds or any of these types of these type of transactions that we have. And so what happens with mining is it is the mechanism specifically for Bitcoin, because like Max was saying, Cardano uses different method for consensus. So mining is a method for consensus or coming to agreement that something happened on the network. And then staking is also a method of consensus for coming to agreement regarding something that happens on the network. So when a transaction occurs, all of the computers on the network have to agree that that transaction happened. So they have to come to consensus that that transaction happened.
Sydney,
And
I'm just
Bitcoin,
going to pause you right there and check
sure.
in with Meg. How's this? How are you receiving this?
So it's interesting I had thought of mining as something that Bitcoin has to do. And I think I had kind of thought like maybe Cardano doesn't have to do that, because I know it's like essentially it needs less computing power. It doesn't need as much fossil fuel driven energy. So is staking mining, like, do those mean the same thing?
So it probably would be better to look at it as consensus. So both of them are consensus mechanisms. So like staking is not
Sydney,
mining
are
and
you
mining is
saying
not.
like basically staking is a way to achieve consensus and mining is another way to achieve consensus?
Exactly. And there's
On the
some
ledger.
additional on the
Okay.
ledger, right? Or come to an agreement that a transaction happened on the ledger. So for Bitcoin, they use a lot of computers to do that are, basically going through a bunch of numbers and kind of figuring out an equation or a problem. And then for staking, it's a little bit different because the people that are part of the network are kind of securing the network by staking their Cardano on the network to really just to keep the network secure and to come to agreement what happens on the network.
So why is that important? Why is having that consensus, that agreement, what does that do?
Well, the consensus and the agreement part of it, that's really kind of the foundation of how we make decisions in the economy in general, whether it's blockchain or your bank or whatever. It's all about us coming to an agreement that something happened. It's all about us coming to an agreement that a dollar is a dollar, or whatever we come to agreements on in society. Consensus that happens as a result of consensus, in a sense, because if there was no consensus that the dollar was valuable, then it wouldn't be. But because we agree as a society, because otherwise it really has no intrinsic value to it, it's paper. But we agree that as a society that it has value. So consensus in general is important, and the blockchain has created a method where a whole bunch of people or a whole bunch of computers can come to consensus that something happened on the network. And
So
then
where it's the people that give it the value. It's our putting our like energy behind that and saying, yeah, that's totally, we agree with that. We think that's it. And it gives it that whatever we're talking about, whether that's like, I don't know, business contracts or currency. It's
whatever it is, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where the consensus piece of it comes in. the agreement piece of it. And then, like what was mentioned earlier regarding Bitcoin. I think the last time I'm sure it's more now, but the last time that I checked, they said that it takes the power of Nigeria to create a Bitcoin now.
Mm.
So it takes the power of a country to create, one of these Bitcoins.
That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power. And if you take into consideration that there's over 6,000 probably projects now, and if all of them were using mining, that would mean we would be sucking up a lot of power in the world just to do these networks. So that's why staking and other consensus mechanisms were investigated, because to Max's point, they're not they're damaging to the ecologically. They'll it's just too much energy drain in order to make that sustainable.
All right, I have like a little list of questions here, but first I want to make sure I get that. So Cardano it needs consensus to function, to scale. It doesn't need mining to scale. It can, because it's consensus can be these other mechanisms that you
Exactly.
Okay, that makes so much sense. Or it's like I'm putting little Lego pieces together. It's making more sense. Okay, and I don't know what direction kind of you guys wanted to take this, but when I hear about Proof of Africa and then ABCD, I guess I just want to know a lot more about, like, what does that actually look like right now? Like, I'm married to someone who just started Gimbal Labs. What that looks like is 3 people talk a lot about really cool stuff. And there some really amazing things are going to happen from it. But like right now, it's those 3, and they've got a pipeline, they have their, I know what that looks like. But for Proof of Africa and ABCD, what does it look like now? And then what's your, like, say all of your dreams could come true in 5 years, what would it be doing? What would it look like? Like the buildings, the furniture, the people, like that's, I think, where for me, with sometimes Cardano used to sound like witchcraft. It doesn't anymore. But when I can understand what it looks like, it all makes more sense.
I think I will let Chidi and Josh talk about ABCD, because that's mostly their projects. But for POA, I think the big vision is a global African stake pool network with multiple stake pools, which essentially enable Cardano to exist in these types of regions, in which act as drivers for innovation and for the economy in general. That's really the big vision.
So I don't know what you said first, but you should know that makes so much more sense than whatever I first heard. That makes that sounds really exciting. But then so then with ABCD and Proof of Africa, like wildest dreams coming true, what does it look like now and in 5 years? And
I would like to start that. Maybe Chidi can finish that. But for ABCD, I think our grand plan, or should I say, we get satisfied when we see like a network of developers across Africa building on the Cardano blockchain, building solutions for Africans on the Cardano blockchain. So in my head, that's like, okay, we have achieved this. That's where we're heading towards.
Okay. I think I'll just add to what Josh said. But I'll try to expand more. You said on the ABCD team right now, it's me, Josh, Wenda, but we've been able to onboard 5 developers who we are currently working with. Although at this stage, we're not really working with newbies. We're actually working with a little bit seasoned developers. We're also in partnership with a company, Lamba Bros, which is transitioning their products to the blockchain. They are going fully, they want to use the Cardano blockchain. So we also have developers about two developers from them too coming into our program. So what we are looking at doing now at this moment is, okay, right now the curriculum our developers are going through is Haskell. We're currently learning Haskell. and we're just putting out a little bit of code here and there on GitHub and all those. But in the long run, we see a whole lot more community. We see ourselves creating open source content that could be accessed by a whole lot of other people. We hope that a lot of people, could come in and learn these things, because I mean, when we started this, I joined the Haskell community and I found out that there was no group, there was only one group on the Haskell wiki, which is South Africa, but there was no other group across Africa. So you understand that these concepts are very new concepts to the people out there, and it will take a lot of sensitization and the rest to get the kind of adoption we want. But what we see ourselves doing in the next 5 years is being able to show the people the opportunities that is in this space. And we should see further adoption down the line.
So, but I don't want, what were you going to say, Aziza?
I just realized I was on mute. I was just going to say, so that's like the long-term picture. I was kind of curious about what those, like right now, where you guys are right now, and like what the steps are to support Proof of Africa, ABCD, and I guess everything in between, to getting to like, what are the steps that like kind of support you in getting to that big 5-year plan? But Meg, like, you're a referee. I literally feel like any question you have.
No, well, go with that
all right,
question.
we'll go ahead and answer that, and like like what can we do?
Yeah, I think with Proof of Africa, well, it's pretty basic. It's just delegating your data to us. It's not much more difficult than that, I guess. If you are interested, you can always join our team. At the end of the day, what we're trying to build is really a network of stakeholders all around Africa. And obviously, right now we are only focused on Nigeria, but long term we will need people in different countries to be able to manage these branches, if I say like that. So yeah, I think just delegating and joining our team if you're interested.
It's so I think like the paradigm shift of thinking about currency and then thinking about cryptocurrency that can be both a currency but then also like a problem solving tool is so big and has so many ramifications, and it's hard to wrap my head around, because it's like one of the places my head goes when you guys describe where the beautiful direction this could take is like, what's the current GDP of Nigeria? What's the current GDP of other countries, right, throughout Africa? And then how would that be measured? Like, what are all those political ramifications of this coming to full fruition? And so how does that GDP metric change? And how do all of these conventional metrics by which government leaders have clout or like have leverage and talk to each other, how do all those metrics change when cryptocurrency becomes this huge force around the world and in Africa? And like, this sounds like it would be taking globalization in the right direction that would be less exploitative. And I just think like, are there forces that I'm just trying to think through like, what, this is super cool, and what are all the other dominoes that fall over?
I would I'm sorry,
so let me
go ahead, Josh. Sorry about that.
okay. Well, yeah, thank you. So let me just take you back to why we actually really started ABCD, and I think that would kind of give you like an idea of where we're going and what to expect, let's say in like a 10-year plan or 10-year projection. So I started out teaching, like try to educate people on blockchain technology. I didn't really understand much. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but the little I knew, I wanted to teach people so they can actually, get in the conversation and start talking about these things, and, from there do their own research, and, maybe it could spread from me. But along the line, I noticed that education is not enough, right? I can't just tell them this thing and they adopt it. there needs to be a way they can connect to this thing, because really, like, the blockchain there's really nothing you can connect it to. Like, I couldn't find something to relate it to it. So it was really difficult for me in the beginning, like trying to explain what it was. But I quickly realized, actually, later on, I actually realized that, okay, these guys need to interact with some kind of solution. So if I talk about, solving or disrupting like the whole situation in Africa, like land registry, healthcare records, things like that, there needs to be something they can interact with. I actually started out sending them like cryptocurrency, like to their wallets.
Can you expand on that a bit? When you say land registry, disruptors, what do you mean by that?
No, I meant like this. Well, in Africa right now, we have really, it's the land registry is like very poor. Like there's no actual solid records of land that you can really, really trust, because it's sad, because the reality is someone can just take your land. Just depends on how rich you are, right? And that's not really cool. You need a system that can manage records like that, and the blockchain does it well. The trustless, decentralized form, manner, right? So if we can actually have that and have the people adopt that system, and then that is progress. I think adoption comes faster when there's a solution they can relate with. And that's why we actually started ABCD. So first of all, POA actually facilitated our educational intentions, right? But then ABCD is going to focus on having African-based developers learn, this language that Cardano is built on, all the blockchain languages. And then because they're Africans and they see the problems, they, with their skill, can build solutions that the Africans can adopt, and thereby creating mass adoption of blockchain technology. Education is good, but it's not enough. They need to adopt something they can relate with. So that is kind of like the core vision of what ABCD sets out to achieve, right? So in 10 years, or should I say like a long-term vision, I want to see an Africa where all these, every sector of Africa, every sector of government or the country is being basically disrupted by blockchain technology, like agriculture, finances, and everything, because right now,
keep going.
One of the biggest problem, actually the biggest problem in Africa is, management of records and funds, and blockchain solves that directly.
What would be, and maybe I'm playing like too much devil's advocate here, but like, what's the elevator pitch to the leadership in Cote d'Ivoire, in South Africa, in the Sudan, like what in Egypt, like what's the like, and I'm trying to, this all sounds, when you described that problem with land registry, it's like, of course, as soon as we solve that problem, the benefits become exponential, right? It unlocks that, like so much else becomes possible. So that is absolutely like what a problem that needs to be solved. And it would be so exciting. It is so exciting that Cardano can fill in that space and start, solving that. But what is, so then, because I'm anticipating like people for whom this, for whom, what do we do when Nigeria just creates their own Cardano or their own cryptocurrency?
Mhm.
Like, do we have access to that too?
Mhm.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chidi.
Okay, I actually just wanted to add a little to what Josh said. Then I think answer your earlier question, give a little bit more clarity on it. I think, you asked about the GDP, and I believe Nigeria has the largest GDP, which is about, I think, close to 400 billion thereabouts. But the key thing here is, like last year, there was this African continental free trade area. It was an agreement, I think, with about 24 countries in Africa. And, the whole idea is to, facilitate cross-border, trade and bring about this equality. with our foreign counterparts. So when you look at agreements like that, you realize that Africa is working towards, let me say, a more unified structure. And when you also consider something like there's going to be cross payments, there's going to be a whole lot of things that these opportunities open up. This agreement was signed, I think that was sometime either May, June, not too sure. I think sometime May, June last year. So when you look at that, you find out that they're going to need tools that could facilitate, payments across each of the member countries. And you just look at, once you just pick up, say, a blockchain solution, it's very easy to have that kind of a unified currency, accepted across without so much need for bureaucracy and the rest of it. So I think it's opportunities like this that you could see practical applications of the blockchain, into solving problems, not just in Nigeria, but like across Africa.
Mm. And I think GDP can be a super bogus metric, but like it's interesting to think through all of the geopolitical ramifications of this because it's so revolutionary. It's so radical.
I want to jump in there too, just a little bit. Like those geopolitical ramifications are the same ones that we're experiencing here in the U.S. Our financial system is what it is. It's definitely played favorites to some people more than others. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and this technology in general is decentralized. So at its root, it's grassroots. It's not, nothing is going to come from the top down. There's going to be no, American, president or Federal Reserve that's going to say, hey, let's do the decentralized thing. That makes sense, So they're definitely going to try to retain their power in whatever way that they can. But what's really powerful is that it's like, how do you turn off the internet? You know what I mean? It's like, might be able to turn it off, in your area, but it's still going to be working in my area. It might still be working, in another country. And so it's the same with Bitcoin right now and other blockchains. You can't turn it off. It's a network of computers that all say the same thing and all come to consensus on that thing. So if you shut down one area, as long as there's one computer in the world that holds the ledger, you can restart the whole blockchain again. So in order to shut down Bitcoin or any of these other networks, you basically have to find everyone who's created a server node, and you have to crush them all, like all of them, because if there's one, right. Yeah. Right, because then they'll you can spin it right back up, and it holds all of the information that was there before it went down. So this whole thing is grassroots. I think it's an opportunity for us to redefine our future. God bless the leaders. I'm sure they had great schooling and brilliant people and all of those things, but some of their ideas don't seem to be inclusive.
Yeah, some of them just have rich racist dads. Let's also say that. But
yeah, so so this is the opportunity, I think, at the grassroots level for all of us to redefine what our future looks like and what type of future we want to have, and what kind of future we want to leave for our kids. So we're in the driver's seat right now. It just kind of depends on where we want to take it. And I think that's one of the things that I think about most is that it's I keep saying this, it's a time to dream, because whatever we want to dream about, we can make happen now. You want to fix world poverty. This is an infrastructure that will give you a better opportunity to do that. You want to make sure that there's no more homeless. This is an infrastructure that will give you a better opportunity to do that. So yeah.
All right, I'm just going to jump in with some of. I was just going to jump in with some of the questions that we're getting in the chat from the audience. So one of the first questions we've got is, can't even tell. So what might be the first resource that could be tokenized to protect the owners or workers in that resource economy? That is a great question. I'm throwing that open to you. You guys know I don't know anything, so I can't answer that.
You get to choose though, Aziza. You can point. You're like, you got to answer that one. Go ahead, Chidi. Sorry.
Okay, I think basically one of the most popular things, that could easily be tokenized is whenever we talk about that is like land registry. And I think that's not just only because of the system, but it actually has a lot of benefits, advantages attached to it. Once you tokenize the land, it automatically you have already attached the ownership to it, and a lot of things just falls in place. So I think that's like one of the easiest and one of the fastest application to something that needs tokenization. And then I could say in reference to Africa, definitely we do have the whole land issues. We have the land grabbing and all those. It's very popular on these parts of the world. So I think it directly solves the issue if any individual anywhere could verify an asset before purchasing it.
Okay, so following on from that, what makes you think that governments will honor that system? Which I guess goes back to what Meg was saying in some ways.
Okay.
I mean,
Anyone else jump in if you.
Okay, I think let's just.
okay, well, we speak. You can go on, Chidi,
Okay. The thing about the distributed ledger technology is there's really no governance structure. And to be very honest with you, I think when you look at Africa, you realize that most government, so-called government structure, has actually failed the people. So I think we are coming to the point where you see the people, pick what's best for them. And the government doesn't really have a choice, but to adopt, to catch up with what's going on. So I believe that going forward, that's what we're going to see. It's not going to be the other way around that we've had going on so far, that the government chooses, what they want to do. I think we'll see a system where the people are actually going to know what's good for them and what works for them. And the government will be forced, to adopt these technologies, not because they want to, but if they don't, there will be more of a sitting duck, so they will just have to, fall in place.
There's something about that sounds so powerful. Go ahead, Josh, sorry.
I wanted to, a lot of African countries, countries around the world, actually third world countries, and developed countries actually practice democracy as the system of government, right? Which literally means power to the people, for the people, and by the people. I think Abraham Lincoln said that. I'm not sure, but the power has never been for the people, by the people, and of the people. And for the very first time, we are pushing power back to the edges with blockchain technology. And you can't want to set out to do that and expect these power grabbers to actually want that to happen. So we are not going to meet them to make it happen. That's why we're training these developers, right? We're meeting the people and they know the needs and we see the needs. And we're putting this power in their hands by educating them on blockchain technology and allowing for them to build the solution we want to see.
I keep thinking when James started talking to me more about Cardano, like really in this past summer, for social justice issues and for like to make globalization not exploitative, it made me think about like when I first read about micro lending, and that like was the Grameen Bank and I think it's Mohammed Yusuf who came up with that concept, right? And then it is both it's a win-win, right? It's this profitable bank, but that is also empowering, like truly empowering. And my hope, and it sounds like Cardano is this moving train, right? We're already on this moving train, and there's already this energy from institutions like the Grameen Bank to help get it there. So then, my hope is that all of this comes true. It's wild to wrap my head around. I mean, as someone who
Yeah, and like I think the coming true part, I think it's inevitable. I think
Right.
it's really unstoppable. It's like, again, like, how do you stop the internet? You know, how did, when the internet first started, you know, it democratized knowledge, and then also publishing, you know, because before the internet, you couldn't publish anything. You could write it in a notebook and maybe show some people, but if you didn't have the resources to publish it where other people could see it, you know, you couldn't publish it. So the internet allowed us to do that, allowed us to get our information out on the internet. And at that time, that wasn't popular, really. I mean, there were a lot of questions that people had about, you know, people being able to get all types of information on the internet. But as we know, it's brought us closer. Even though there's crazy stuff that goes on, it still brought us closer together, where we can see each other, because we wouldn't be doing this today without the internet, the protocol that's allowing us to sit here on Zoom and have this conversation. So I see the same thing kind of happening with blockchain. And, you know, specifically with finance, that I think that's one of the use cases that a lot of people are really excited about, is what it's going to do for finance. But it's going to help out in a lot of other areas as well. And it's not going anywhere. And the big players in traditional finance have already laid down. They've already said, okay, all right, well, let's figure out what we need to do now. I mean, you know, not too long ago, it's been maybe 3 or 4 months now. I can't remember who the gentleman was, but he was appointed by President. I believe he was appointed by President Trump. But what he came out and did during his time in office is he said that banks can now custody cryptocurrency. So, like, cryptocurrency is really kind of considered to be a competitor to the banking system, you know. But now they're already saying, okay, you know, because a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people were like, you know, I love Warren Buffett's, you know, quote, you know, that Bitcoin is what did he say, rat poison on steroids or something like that. You know, like they didn't believe it. They think it's like this stuff that has no value. But banks are now allowed to custody cryptocurrency, and the larger governments are starting to get, these are not central bank digital currencies are not cryptocurrency, so people know. CBDCs, but lots of central banks are now creating their own digital token, we'll call it. And so that's just where we're going. It's just an evolution of you know, we went from like the barter system to the, you know, gold standard to fiat currency, and then the next step is just you know, what we're dealing with now, which is these cryptocurrencies. But it's just an evolution of how we relate socially, and it's not.
So bringing it back to I guess, you know, ending on that cycle of blockchain or cryptocurrencies, and just aware that we have a few minutes left. I guess one question I'd like to ask is, like, what is the benefit for our audience of staking with Proof of Africa, and how can they do that?
I think the benefit is pretty clear. You have manual profits on the amount of ADA which delegates. And so for those who don't know, ADA is the currency powering the coordinate network. And so how to do it? It's simple. You simply buy ADA on an exchange. You can do that either through Binance or any other exchange. By first buying Bitcoin and then sending it there, or buying directly with euro, dollar, whatever it is. And then you simply send it over to personal wallets, which owns, not leave it on an exchange, like Daedalus, Euroi, and these types of wallets, which will allow you to delegate to our stake pool, which and our ticker is POA. And so if you just look it up, you will find it. And yeah, we'll be able to support us in our mission.
Okay, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us. Meg, we've loved having you on here. Chidi, Max, Josh, Sydney, I have to say that because, you know, you're our regulars, but to everyone who's new and sparkly and shiny, we love you so much. And we love our regulars too. Yeah, so I guess that's it. We're going to close up. And yeah, AfroFinLab.
Isanda chetu